Baseball, our national pastime. Walter Johnson, Ty Cobb, Babe Ruth, Bobby Thompson, Pete Rose, Hank Aaron. The stars and events which make up great moments in baseball. From the early 1800s to the present day, baseball has been a part of America. The traditions of baseball have been passed on, and each new generation inherits the standards and records of the past. A form of baseball had been played by American youth since the colonial days, and it can be said with certainty that while he may have played the game as a boy in Cooperstown, New York, General Abner Doubleday did not invent baseball. In fact, it was a land surveyor who created the game. In 1845, Alexander Cartwright compiled a set of rules for the New York Knickerbockers. The bases would be 90 feet apart, each side would have 9 men, and each inning 3 outs. In 1869, the Cincinnati Red Stockings became baseball's first professional team, and 7 years later, the National League was formed. The league's first ball game was played between Boston and Philadelphia, and with that game came the initial recording of events, statistics, and records that would fill endless pages in the game's rich history. The Chicago Cubs won baseball's first pennant, led by pitcher Albert Goodwill Spaulding. By 1880, the sport had spread to all 38 states, and the game's colorful professionals were followed with an astuteness only baseball could demand. Paying customers cheered the early greats, men like Cap Anson, the leading hitter of his time, Mike King Kelly, famed for his daring and inventive slides, and powerful Ed Delahanty, his career cut short by a fatal spill off Niagara Falls. At the turn of the century, baseball had become the nation's game, and each city had its own ballpark. In 1901, Ban Johnson established a new league, the American League. Johnson struggled to put the league together, often raiding players from National League clubs, thus starting long-standing feuds, including one with the National League champion Baltimore Orioles and a fiery young third baseman named John McGraw. Later, as manager of the New York Giants, McGraw refused to compete in the 1904 World Series against Johnson's American League winners, but McGraw held out for only 1 year. In 1905, the Philadelphia Athletics, led by Connie Mack, won the American League pennant, and public opinion forced McGraw and his National League champions to relent. Two years earlier, Boston had beaten Pittsburgh 5 out of 8 in the first World Series. In 1905, the format changed to 4 out of 7, and fans flocked to the Polo Grounds. Although no World Series was played in 1904, the stubborn McGraw delighted his following by raising a flag inscribed New York Giants 1904 World Champions. The Athletics of 1905 were a solid team under Cornelius McGillicuddy, Connie Mack, but they lost the World Series to McGraw's Giants in 5 games because the New Yorkers had on their side the greatest pitcher of the day, Christy Mathewson, a 25-year-old college graduate with pinpoint control. During the season, Mathewson led the major leagues with 31 wins and a 1.27 earned run average, and then topped that off in the World Series by pitching 3 shutouts. The 1905 World Series was a triumph for the Giants and Mathewson, and after the final game, the team celebrated by taking a victory lap around the Polo Grounds in that remarkable new invention, the horseless carriage. In the early decades of the 20th century, Americans found more leisure time, so they rushed to the ballpark to see stars like Cy Young, who in his 22-year career won a staggering 511 games. Another outstanding pitcher was Walter Johnson of the Washington Senators. From 1910 to 1919, Johnson won 20 or more for a team never strong at bat. He became known as the Big Train for a fastball that would help him record more strikeouts, 3,508, and more shutouts, 113, than any pitcher in baseball history, and was second only to Cy Young in games won. Despite the awe he instilled in the opposition, Johnson was as modest and gentle-tempered a man as ever played the game. And throughout his 28-year career as pitcher and manager, Johnson was always well-liked and respected. Equally admired was the Flying Dutchman of the Pittsburgh Pirates, Hannes Wagner. At shortstop, Wagner had no peer, and at bat, he used the great strength of his forearms to win 8 batting titles over the span of 12 seasons. On the base paths, he led the league in stolen bases 5 times. Wagner was only 5'11", but weighed more than 200 pounds, and although not graceful, he was the most complete ball player of his time. This famous split grip belongs to baseball's all-time batting leader, Ty Cobb. The accomplishments of the Georgia Peach are as impressive today as they were more than half a century ago. Over the course of 24 years, Cobb set major league career standards for games played, base hits, runs scored, and stolen bases. And his lifetime batting average of .367 is the highest in the game's history, and more than 100 points above the entire league's average during the same period. Cobb's genial appearance belied a fiercely combative nature. He had few friends in the game, but no one denied his greatness. Staunch competition came from the Boston Red Sox' Tris Speaker, who played the shallowest but most complete center field of the day, and at bat compiled a .344 lifetime average. Another leading player of the era was Rabbit Moranville, the Boston Braves' brilliant shortstop. In 1914, on the eve of World War I, Moranville led the Braves from last place in mid-July to a World Series sweep over the Athletics in October. Thus, the Miracle Braves of 1914. In 1919, Joe Jackson and the Chicago White Sox won the American League pennant. Jackson hit .351, another great season for the man with the 3rd highest lifetime average in baseball. That same year, the White Sox' Ed Cicotti was the major's leading hurler with 29 wins. The Sox were in the World Series against the Cincinnati Reds, and the experts favored Chicago. But Cincinnati surprised the country by winning. The following year, America was even more surprised by what it learned from an investigation led by baseball commissioner Kennesaw Mountain Landis. Jackson, Cicotti, and 6 others had conspired to throw the series. The Black Sox scandal of 1919 threatened to destroy the game. But Judge Landis took strong action. The accused were banned from baseball for life, and the game's integrity was restored.
It is my belief that baseball is loved by an entire nation because it embodies that priceless spirit of equality that is the very backbone of America itself.
A new baseball era was in the making, and a young left-handed pitcher for the Boston Red Sox was leading the way, George Herman Ruth. His schooling came from the streets, cheap saloons, and a Baltimore orphanage. But the Babe had a bubbling, outgoing personality that would soon claim the overwhelming affection of the American public. In 1916, at the age of 21, Babe Ruth won 23 games, becoming the best left-hander in the league. But his mound success was merely a prelude to his skill at bat. The Red Sox converted Ruth into an outfielder, and baseball was in for a revolution. In 1920, the New York Yankees purchased Ruth's contract from Boston. They wanted him to hit home runs in the Polo Grounds, the park they shared with the Giants. Babe hit 54 and then 59 the next year. In 1923, Yankee Stadium, the house that Ruth built, was opened, enabling more than 70,000 fans to see baseball's new star. The fans turned out to watch the Bambino, and he provided them with some of the greatest sports thrills America has ever experienced. No one hit them farther. No one hit them more often. And no one hit them like Babe Ruth. He lived as a genuine legend, a king if America ever had one. Despite his incredible fame, the Babe always found time for his biggest fans, children, and he spoke their language. Ruth led New York to 6 pennants in 8 years as he founded a Yankee empire. With the addition of Lou Gehrig, the slugging young first baseman from Columbia University, the already potent Yankee lineup was transformed into Murderer's Row. In 1927, Gehrig and Ruth put New York in a frenzy with an incredible home run race. Gehrig hit 46 through August, Ruth 43. But Gehrig hit only one more in September, while the Babe blasted 17, giving him the magical record 60. 1927 was a great year for the Yankees, Ruth, and Gehrig. The team won 110 games and the World Series. Ruth had 60 homers and Gehrig 175 RBIs, the most powerful 1-2 punch in baseball history. Gehrig went on to play in more than 2,000 consecutive games. And Babe Ruth roared through the 20s with a style uniquely his own. But don't think there weren't plenty of other hitting heroes. Rogers Hornsby, the game's greatest right-handed hitter. In 1924, Hornsby batted .424 with the St. Louis Cardinals, the highest average of all time. And in one 5-year stretch, the Raja averaged .402. Bill Terry of the Giants, the last National Leaguer to bat .400. George Sisler, the St. Louis Browns, who holds the record for 257 hits in a season. And Harry the Horse Heilman, another .400 hitter. Despite the number of pure hitters, sluggers thrived even more. The Athletics' Jimmy Fox, who challenged Ruth's mark of 60 homers with 58 in 1932. The Cubs' Hack Wilson, who in 1930 hit 56 home runs, a National League record. That same season, he drove in 190, a Major League mark. Mel Ott of the Giants, a small man who used his distinctive batting style to generate power and excite the fans. Mel Ott led the National League in home runs 6 times. While the hitters were enjoying baseball's upper hand, there was one pitcher who always held his own, Grover Cleveland Alexander. In 20 years of pitching, Alexander amassed 373 wins, the 3rd highest ever, and his record 16 shutouts in 1916 still stands. The golden age had arrived, and with it, the first All-Star game in 1933.
We have a sellout, a big crowd, a fine day, and I hope the best team wins. Thank you.
The words of John McGraw, who came out of retirement to manage against Connie Mack's American League stars, men like Jimmy Fox, heavy-hitting Al Simmons, catcher Mickey Cochran, and pitcher Lefty Grove. It was a grand occasion, and the idea was completely new. Nothing but stars on the ball field. And when the game began, guess who stole the show with a 2-run homer that provided the winning margin? In the book of baseball legend, everything was as it was supposed to be. Babe Ruth had made the American League victorious in the very first gathering of the stars. In 1934, in the second gathering, the show was stolen by Carl Hubbell of the Giants, famed for his great screwball, which he mastered with deadly accuracy. King Carl struck out 5 future Hall of Famers in a row: Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Jimmy Fox, Al Simmons, and Joe Cronin. Pitchers were making the news. A sensational brother act, Dizzy and Paul Dean, pitched the Cardinals to the pennant that year. Dizzy, comical, boastful, and completely original, won 30. Rookie Paul won 19. The city of St. Louis had World Series fever, kept hot by a rough and ready team called the Gas House Gang. Here's how the 1934 World Series was remembered by Cardinal captain Leo DeRocher.
Ball players don't come scrappier than Pepper Martin and Ducky Medwick, more talented than Dizzy Dean, tougher than manager Frankie Frisch. In the 1934 World Series, we took on Detroit, gas house style, no holds barred. They used to say that we'd knock over our grandmothers to get an extra base. In the 5th game, Dizzy Dean went into second base standing up to make sure Martin wasn't doubled at first. The first thing Dizzy said when he came to was, "Did they get Pepper?" What the Gas House Gang lacked in talent, they made up in guts. In the last game, we were winning 9-0, but still Medwick started the fight, sliding into third. Got back to the outfield, the Detroit fans were ready for him. They threw everything they could lay their hands on. I don't even know where they got half the stuff. Kennesaw Mountain Landis was commissioner of baseball, and the old judge called Frisch and Medwick over. He asked Ducky if he had kicked the Tiger third baseman. Medwick said, "Yeah, but that's the way I always slide." Judge Landis ordered Medwick out of the game, but not for fighting. He was the only man ever thrown out of a World Series for his own protection.
In 1935, Cincinnati stepped into baseball's future by installing lights at Crosley Field. And for the first time, fans could see a ball game after a hard day's work. Ironically, it was the Reds who in 1938 met the Brooklyn Dodgers in the first night game at Ebbets Field. And Johnny Vandermeer, Cincinnati's 23-year-old left-hander, made baseball history by pitching his second consecutive no-hitter. That same year, Tiger slugger Hank Greenberg posed a real challenge to Babe Ruth's 60 homers. Greenberg belted 58 with 5 games to go, but could do no more. And in 1938, the Chicago Cubs won the pennant on Gabby Hartnett's famous home run, hit as darkness fell on Wrigley Field. The Cubs' World Series hopes rested on the sore arm of Dizzy Dean, acquired from the Cardinals. The Cubs' opponents were the Yankees, and in the second game of the series, Old Diz struggled bravely to hold the New Yorkers back. But Frank Grossetti hit an 8th-inning homer, and New York went on to sweep the series in 4 games. The Yankees were stronger than ever in the 30s, but 2 of their greats were passing from the game. In 1935, Babe Ruth joined the Boston Braves, and it was with them that he hit his 714th and final home run. And in 1939, the Iron Horse, Lou Gehrig, was stricken with a form of polio. Even with the knowledge of his fatal disease, the Yankee captain expressed his gratitude to an overflow Yankee Stadium crowd.
Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth.
1939 saw the passing of one generation and the arrival of another. That year, a 21-year-old Iowa farm boy by the name of Bob Feller led the American League in wins and the majors in strikeouts. 2 other youngsters had great seasons, Joe DiMaggio of the Yankees and Ted Williams of the Red Sox. DiMaggio took the Yankees to the '39 World Series against Cincinnati. The Yankees had taken the first 3 games, and in the 10th inning of the 4th, with 2 men on, Joe DiMaggio singled to right. Charlie Keller stunned Reds catcher Ernie Lombardi, and with the ball only a few feet away, DiMaggio scored with a brilliant slide. The Yankees had swept another series, and the play at the plate became known as Lombardi's snooze. In 1941, Joe DiMaggio accomplished the near impossible. The Yankee Clipper amazed the baseball world when he established a major league record by hitting safely in 45 consecutive games, and he didn't stop there. The streak continued, and with the entire nation rooting Joltin' Joe on, it all finally ended in Cleveland at 56 games, and appears today as one of the game's most untouchable records. That same year, Boston left fielder Ted Williams carried a blazing bat and provided another hitting landmark. In 1941, Ted Williams led the major leagues with a .406 batting average, and no one has hit over 400 since. In the All-Star game that season, Williams came up with 2 out in the bottom of the 9th, and the American League trailing by a run. Ted Williams hit the most dramatic homer in the history of the Summer Classic, winning the game. A fitting blow for the man who would also lead the majors in home runs. In the 1941 World Series, Mickey Owen became a household name. The Brooklyn Dodgers had seemingly evened the series against the Yankees at 2 games apiece as Tommy Henrich struck out. But catcher Mickey Owen let the pitch get by. Henrich was safe at first, and the Yankees had new life. Joe DiMaggio singled. Charlie Keller doubled, and soon 4 runs came in, all with 2 out in the 9th. And the Yankees went on to capture another World Series. But the delight of baseball fans would soon simmer. In the grim shadow of World War II, baseball continued despite the absence of most of its top stars. Then in 1946, ball players returned from the war, and fans flowed to the parks in record numbers, eager to take part once again in the great American game. And when World Series time came around that year, 2 1946 MVPs met head-to-head, Ted Williams and Stan Musial. Williams had come back from the war to resume a career that would result in a lifetime .344 batting average and 521 home runs. Williams' rival, Stan the Man Musial, rose to stardom during the war years and stayed on top as he hit over 300 for 16 consecutive seasons while winning 7 batting crowns. But the 1946 Red Sox-Cardinals series is remembered for another name. 7th game, score tied, last of the 8th, and Enos Slaughter, playing with a broken elbow, leads off. A single to center. 2 Cardinal batters try to advance Slaughter, but fail. The stage is set for one of baseball's most famous base-running efforts as Harry Walker doubles to right and Slaughter, never hesitating, races all the way from first to give the Cardinals a 4-3 advantage. This play is remembered as Slaughter's race from first on a single, but it was Walker's hit scored a double which got the run home. In Boston's final inning, it all comes down to pinch hitter Tom McBride. Harry the Cat Burkeen delivers the pitch that earns him his 3rd series victory and the Cardinals their 6th world championship. That last out marked the end of one chapter of baseball history and the beginning of another. The following year, 1947, Jackie Robinson became the first modern-day black in the major leagues. Brooklyn Dodger president Branch Rickey had carefully selected Robinson with the support of Ford Frick, National League president. Everyone knew that Robinson's task would not be easy. Jackie represented not only generations of great black ball players who had been denied entry into baseball, but also the aspirations of his entire race. No better choice could have been made. Robinson's combination of courage, determination, and strength was a model to all. And when it came time for the 47 World Series, Jackie Robinson and the Dodgers were there, led by manager Bert Schotten. The Yankees of manager Bucky Harris had taken the American League pennant, and an old intra-city rivalry was once again resumed. Ironically, the two best moments of the series had no effect on its outcome. Bill Bevins, who had gone only 7-13 during the season, pitched the fourth game for the Yankees, and in the ninth inning, he was 2 outs away from an unthinkable dream, the first no-hitter in World Series history. Here's how he recalls those final moments.
Came up, and I got a little careless and walked him on a pitch I almost threw away. It made me a little sick to my stomach putting a runner on. The next batter was Jorgensen, and when he popped out to first base, that made it 2 away. Reeser came up, and Gianfrido went in to run for Furillo. I was 2-1 on Reeser when Gianfrido stole second, so we decided to walk Reeser. We put the winning run on first to set up a force play. I knew they'd send Cookie Lavagetto up to pinch hit. I watched him hit before and had instructions on how to pitch him. I pitched him where I wanted to, high and fast. Now I had a strike. I thought I'd waste a pitch, but he didn't give me a chance to go that far. When he hit that ball, I felt empty. I was backing up the plate when that second run come in. I realized I'd lost the ball game. First you lose a no-hitter, and then you turn around and lose the ball game. DeMage came up beside me and said, "Tough luck, Bill."
The Yankees had it tough again in the 6th game, trailing by 3 runs with Joe DiMaggio at bat and 2 men on. Dodger defensive replacement Al Gianfrido makes one of the great catches in series history and preserved a Dodger victory that evened the series at 3 games apiece. But despite Lavagetto's double and Gianfrido's grab, it was the Yankees who would celebrate the 7th game and another World Series triumph. In 1948, as more black ball players entered the majors, Roy Campanella joined the Dodgers, beginning a 10-year career that would result in 3 MVP awards and later election to the Hall of Fame. That same year, Cleveland's Larry Doby, the American League's first black player, hit .301, helping the Indians win only the 2nd pennant in their history. It had been a great year for Cleveland. The Indians finished the season tied with the Boston Red Sox and reached the World Series by defeating the Red Sox in the American League's first pennant playoff. Owner Bill Veeck's Indians also set a Major League attendance mark of 2.8 million in their spacious municipal stadium. The leaders of the Indians were player-manager Lou Boudreau, who hit .355, right-hander Bob Lemon, who had his first of 7 20-win seasons, and rapid Robert Feller, who'd set a single-season strikeout record 2 years earlier and would pitch 3 no-hitters and 12 one-hitters in his career. The Boston Braves were the Indians' opponent in the series, and they too had impressive talent, like Warren Spahn, who in his 3rd full season showed the form that would make him the National League's all-time leading left-hander with 363 wins. Spahn was complemented by right-hander Johnny Sain, who led the majors with 24 victories. Thus, the two brave aces gave rise to the famed refrain, Spahn and Sain, and pray for rain. In Game 1, Feller and Sain pitched shutout ball until the 8th inning, when Feller and shortstop Boudreau tried to pick off Phil Macy at second. Macy was called safe, but a nation of fans who never saw the play argued he was out. Tommy Holmes later drilled a single to score Macy as the Braves won 1-0. Despite Feller's loss, Cleveland went on to win the World Series, although seemingly forgotten by millions of Bob Feller fans who blame the fact that he never won a series game on the disputed call at second. All the Indians, however, were content to celebrate their second World Championship. In 1950, baseball history was made in Philadelphia. Connie Mack, after managing the Athletics for 50 years, retired, and it was now the Phillies, or Whiz Kids, who won their first pennant in 35 years. Robin Roberts won 20 games. Reliever Jim Constanti added 16, and Dick Sisler's home run against Brooklyn on the final day clinched it. Delirium in Philadelphia. But the next year, there would be even more excitement in New York. 1951, and Leo DeRocher was managing the Giants. In May, he brought up rookie Willie Mays to play center field and get the team moving. The Giants had trailed the Dodgers by 13.5 games on August 11th, but then began a breathtaking run for the pennant, winning 37 of their last 44. They tied the Dodgers on the last day of the season, and it's now the bottom of the ninth in the third and final playoff game. New York has just scored, but the Dodgers still lead 4-2 with one out. Runners are at second and third. Dodger reliever Ralph Branca is pitching to Bobby Thompson, and baseball history is about to be made. Here's how Giant broadcaster Russ Hodges described the action.
Branca throws. There's a left back. It's going to be, I believe, the Giants won the pennant. 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 Bobby Thompson hits into the lower deck of the left field stand. The Giants won the pennant, and they're going crazy. They're going crazy.
Bobby Thompson, shot heard round the world, stands out in baseball history. And though not a Hall of Fame candidate, Thompson's name lives on. And so does that of pitcher Ralph Branca, who never considered his number 13 unlucky. In 1949, the New York Yankees added an extra dimension to their already talented club. They hired Charles Dillon Casey Stengel to be their manager. And Casey, who possessed a unique combination of intelligence, humor, and charm, led the Yankees to World Series victories in 49 and 50. 1951 was a winner, too, even if it was Joe DiMaggio's last season. His final game came in the World Series as he doubled to right. Later, DiMaggio was thrown out at third, his speed diminished, but his graceful style was still apparent. A big gap had to be filled in center, but Casey had a rookie named Mickey Mantle who was equal to the task. Immediately, Mantle was tabbed as the fastest man in the majors. But all his speed was almost incidental compared to his raw power. Enough power to sustain the Yankee dynasty for another decade. But the Yankees didn't win on brute force alone. In the early 50s, they possessed one of baseball's best pitching staffs. Chief Allie Reynolds threw 2 no-hitters in 1951 and ranked second in total World Series victories. Vic Raschi, the Springfield Rifle. Junk ball pitcher Eddie Lopat. And a young left-hander named Whitey Ford. Ford would go on to set World Series records for victories, strikeouts, and scoreless innings. He would also win 236 games, losing only 106, the top winning percentage in modern-day baseball. Casey Stengel got the most out of his players, especially scrappers like Phil Rizzuto. A personal favorite of Casey was catcher Yogi Berra, one of baseball's genuine clutch hitters. Yogi hit 358 career homers, and only Ruth and Mantle hit more in the World Series. Another Stengel favorite was the Yankees' pugnacious second baseman, Billy Martin. In the 1953 World Series, Billy the Kid batted .500. And his last hit was a 7th game winner that gave Casey and the Yanks 5 straight World Series titles, the greatest team record in baseball history. And as the old professor used to say, you can look it up. In 1954, Stengel's Yankees won 103 games, but were beaten out by the Cleveland Indians, who set a league record of 111 victories. The Indians succeeded on the strength of their marvelous pitching staff, led by Bob Lemon, who won 23 games that season, and Early Wynn, who also won 23, and Mike Garcia, the Big Bear, who chipped in with 19 victories. Cleveland's arms made the Indians strong favorites when they took on New York. But Vic Wertz and his tribesmen were in for a surprise. In the first game of the series, Wertz drilled one 460 feet, but Willie Mays made this classic catch, one of the all-time greats. Giant fans had come to expect the impossible from Mays, but they were not expecting the exploits of pinch hitter Dusty Rhodes. He won the first game in the 10th inning with a pinch hit home run, hit another homer the next day, and drove in key runs in the 3rd game. The Giants swept the favored Indians 4 straight, and once again proved that anything is possible in baseball. But in 1955, the residents of Brooklyn were still wondering if it was possible for their Dodgers to win a World Series. They had lost 7 series, the last 5 to the Yankees. But his rookie manager, Walter Alston, prepared his team for Yankee Stadium, and an old nemesis, the Dodgers vowed this would be their year to win it all. But in the opening game, Yankee first baseman Joe Collins reached Brooklyn's Don Newcomb for 2 home runs. And when New York took the second game as well, it looked like business as usual for Brooklyn. The Dodgers returned to Ebbets Field still hopeful, but aware that no series team had ever come back after losing the first 2 games. Dodger catcher Roy Campanella got Brooklyn rolling in the 3rd game with a first-inning homer. It seemed to wake the Dodgers up as they went on to score 6 more runs. Brooklyn won the game 8-3 as southpaw Johnny Padres, pitching on his 23rd birthday, scattered 7 hits in his first series victory. The Yankees' lead now stood at 2-1. In Game 4, Dodgers center fielder Duke Snider, the Duke of Flatbush, came through big as he blasted one of his 4 series homers. This one, a 3-run clout that gave Brooklyn a 7-3 lead. Later, with a man on and 2 out in the 7th, the Duke made the big play, choking off a Yankee rally. The Dodgers took Game 4 8-5 and won the 5th game 5-3. A 3-game sweep in Ebbets Field, and dim bums were only a game away from their dream. The Yankees took the 6th game at the stadium. Before Game 7, Walter Alston held a meeting, and the slugging Dodgers came out bunting. Snider bunted Pee Wee Reese to second. The Duke appeared out at first, but knocked the ball loose from Skowron's glove. The wheels were turning. Campanella's bunt advanced both runners. It was Gil Hodges' turn. A sacrifice fly scored Reese with Brooklyn's 2nd run. But in Yankee Stadium, a 2-run lead wasn't safe with Yogi Berra up and 2 on. It looked like trouble, but Sandy Ambrose made the catch that would preserve his memory in Brooklyn forever. McDougal, who had rounded second, had to get back, but the relay from Ambrose to Reese to Hodges completed the biggest double play in Dodger history. In the 9th inning, Johnny Padres was still on the mound, leading 2-0 with 2 away. The series was history. Brooklyn's first and only world championship. Next year had finally come. The one year that would last forever in the hearts of Brooklyn. The next season, 1956, the Yankees and Dodgers were matched up again. New York won in 7 games, but something happened in Game 5 which transcended the entire series. In the 9th inning, Don Larson stands 1 out away from something never before approached, a perfect World Series game. Pinch hitter Dale Mitchell is his last obstacle. Larson recalls those final moments.
There was one thought going through my mind. He's a fastball hitter. He likes them up. Pitch him low and away. Concentrate. Concentrate. The count was coming to 1 and 2, and I could feel the tenseness building up. No one said anything. No one on the field or on the bench talked about a no-hitter. They were too superstitious, but I knew I had one going. Before the 9th, I had said to Mantle, wouldn't it be something if I got a no-hitter? He just looked at me as if I was crazy and moved away. Guys on the team were praying the ball wouldn't be hit to them. They were afraid they'd make an error. I don't think I ever felt more alone in my life.
With that called 3rd strike, Don Larson gave baseball its first perfect game in 34 years, and the only one ever in a World Series. All from a pitcher who won just 11 games in his best season. Another instance in baseball history when the unlikely hero rises up to astound the world. In 1957, 4 years after the Boston Braves franchise headed west to Milwaukee, Warren Spahn, a holdover from the Boston era, helped Milwaukee to its first pennant by winning 21 games. Milwaukee also claimed 2 hitting greats, hammer and Hank Aaron, who won the Major League home run crown, and slugger Eddie Matthews. But in the World Series, the biggest star was right-hander Lou Burdette, who pitched 24 scoreless innings against those perennial American League champion New York Yankees. The Braves' defense sparkled also. Wes Covington made this grab in Game 2 that helped earn a 4-2 victory. Defensive plays highlighted the entire series. In center field, Henry Aaron made this catch in Game 3. Gil McDougall up in the 4th inning of a scoreless Game 5. Wes Covington makes the play that prevents a homer, and the Braves went on to win the game 1-0. The series comes down to the 7th game, played at Yankee Stadium. The Braves, again behind Burdette, led 5-0 with Moose Skowron at bat in the 9th inning and the bases loaded. Eddie Matthews makes the play. Lou Burdette has won his 3rd series game, the 2nd by shutout, and Milwaukee has won its 1st World Series. It had been a long time since 1914's Miracle Braves. Milwaukee had become quite a success story, and soon other clubs began looking west. In 1958, the Giants said goodbye New York and hello San Francisco. That same season, Brooklyn's heart was broken for the last time when the Dodgers opted for the golden sunshine of Los Angeles and found a home in the LA Coliseum. A year later, they won the World Series and broke all attendance marks. In 1960, attention turned back east to Pittsburgh, where the Pirates had won their first pennant since 1927. That year, the Bucs had been wiped out in 4 straight by the Yankees. Coincidentally, the Yankees were in it again in '60, but this time the Pirates, led by right fielder Roberto Clemente, were in better shape to halt the pinstripe juggernaut. Game 7, Pirate hopes were dim as New York led 7-4 in the 8th. It looked even darker when Bill Verdon slapped one to short. The crowd was stunned as Tony Kubek was victimized by the granddaddy of all bad hops. The Yankee shortstop would have to leave the game. Casey Stengel appeared to sense a fast-gathering storm. The Pirates quickly scored a run, and Casey went to the mound for a change of pitchers in what few realized would be his last game as Yankee manager. The Pirates narrowed the gap to 7-6, but then reliever Jim Coates got 2 outs, and Pittsburgh hopes depended on Hal Smith, a part-time catcher. Smith's 3-run shot put Forbes Field in a frenzy as the Pirates took a 9-7 lead with only an inning to go. Hal Smith had played for 5 teams in 10 years, but this year the Pirates were happy to have him on their side. But then the Yankees lashed out for 2 runs to tie in the 9th. In the bottom of the 9th, the Bucs' first batter was Bill Mazeroski, better known for his glove than his bat. On the mound, Yankee right-hander Ralph Terry. As Yogi Berra watched Mazeroski's homers sail over the left field wall, Pittsburghers ecstatically celebrated the town's first series victory in 35 years. The Pirates' comeback, led by Smith and Mazeroski, was yet another example of baseball's spontaneous surprises. In 1961, the heroics of Ruth and Gehrig were matched by another pair of Yankees. Mickey Mantle, as powerful as ever, still cracking towering home runs. and Roger Maris, who did not hit them as far, but did hit them often, something he had not done with consistency until he arrived in Yankee Stadium the previous year. All at once, Maris and Mantle were in a spectacular home run race, reminiscent of Ruth and Gehrig in 1927. It was neck and neck until the final weeks when Maris pulled away. Mantle finished with 54, his best ever. Maris reached 59 and didn't stop there. Baltimore's Jack Fisher on the mound. Home run number 60, and the Babe's record was tied. Record-breaking number 61 came off Boston's Tracy Stallard, and baseball's most coveted record now belonged to Roger Maris. A year later, in 1962, Ty Cobb's stolen base record was surpassed by Maury Wills of the Dodgers. Wills stole 104, 8 more than Cobb's 96 back in 1915. The switch-hitting Dodgers shortstop typified the Los Angeles teams of the early 60s, speedy, scrappy, and smart. It hadn't taken long for manager Walter Alston to develop a new generation of quality ball players. Don Drysdale was one of 2 pitchers who led the Dodgers to championships in '63 and '65. And in '68, the Big D surpassed the Big Train, Walter Johnson, by pitching 58 2/3 consecutive innings of scoreless baseball. But the pitcher who got most of the attention was Sandy Koufax. There's irony in the fact that Koufax was born and raised in Brooklyn and signed by the Brooklyn Dodgers in 1955, but was ineffective during his years there before rising to stardom in Los Angeles. From 1962 to '66, 5 straight years, Koufax led the league in ERA, won 25 or more 3 times, broke Bob Feller's season strikeout record, hurled 4 no-hitters, including a perfect game, and struck out more batters in a World Series game than any man ever before, all in 5 seasons. Then, in 1966, bothered by severe pain in his throwing arm, Sandy Koufax retired at the age of 30. It seemed the time for sudden endings and overnight changes, not only in America, but baseball as well. Forbes Field, Old Bush Stadium, Crosley Field, and Connie Mack Stadium went the way of Ebbets Field and the Polo Grounds. Baseball was passing into a new age, but for fans who hated to see the grounds of the past torn apart so quickly, there was at least the consolation of selecting a souvenir. The old gives way to the new. Spacious ballparks with a modern look. The jet age made expansion possible. In 1965, the Astrodome became the first indoor stadium, and by the end of the decade, baseball became international. In Montreal, even the scoreboards spoke French. But the game was still baseball. And Ernie Banks was still Ernie Banks, the ever-cheerful slugger of the Chicago Cubs. He never fulfilled his dream of taking the Cubs to the World Series, but every day to Ernie was, in his words, a beautiful day to play baseball in beautiful Wrigley Field. And this day was one of them. Frank Robinson also hit over 500 homers, playing primarily for Cincinnati and Baltimore. And Harmon Killebrew slugged over 500 for Washington and Minnesota. Willie McCovey became the all-time left-handed home run hitter in the National League. Teammate Willie Mays belted 660 homers in the more than 3,200 hits gathered in his brilliant career. And Mickey Mantle with 536 career homers and a record 18 in World Series play. Baseball's class of the 60s accounted for more home runs than any previous decade. But the 60s also had great pitching. San Francisco's Juan Marichal continued in the Giants' tradition of hurlers Mathewson and Hubble with 6 20-win seasons. Jim Bunning won more than 100 games in each league while pitching a no-hitter and a perfect game. And in 1968, Detroit's Denny McLain accomplished what many thought impossible. He won 31 games. McLain led the Tigers to the World Series that year against the St. Louis Cardinals, defending champs who were seeking their 3rd world title in 5 seasons. The Tigers had McLain, but the Cardinals had Bob Gibson. Gibson had been sensational during the season, setting a modern-day record with an incredible 1.12 earned run average, including 13 shutouts and a stretch of 100 innings in which he allowed just 2 earned runs. And in the first game of the series, Gibson was at the top of his form. He tied Sandy Koufax's record of most strikeouts in a single series game, 15. And then he established his own record of 16. And still had 1 out to go. Number 17. Gibson dominated on the mound, while Cardinal speedster Lou Brock dominated everywhere else. Tiger fans may have scoffed, but soon they too were convinced. In this series, Lou Brock had little trouble tying his own record of 7 stolen bases set the previous year. He also tied the World Series record for base hits with 13. The Cardinals raced to a 3-game-to-1 series advantage and appeared ready to clinch it in the 5th game, taking an early lead. But the 5th inning would feature a key play involving Lou Brock and left fielder Willie Horton. Baseball's greatest base runner tried to score standing up and was called out. Tiger fans loved it, but the Cardinals couldn't believe it. Suddenly, everything went wrong. The Tigers rallied. Al Kaline, distinguished right fielder and future Hall of Famer, had waited 15 years to play in a World Series, and in the 7th inning singled in the tying and winning runs. The Tigers then won Game 6 behind Denny McLain, but now face the invincible Gibson in Game 7. It's still scoreless in the 7th inning when Jim Northrup lines one to center that gives smooth fielding Curt Flood trouble. The moment is fatal for Gibson and the Cardinals as 2 runners score on Northrup's triple. And in the year in which Gibson and McLain had dominated the headlines, Tiger left-hander Mickey Lolich wrapped up his 3rd series victory and Detroit's first world championship in 23 years. '68 was a great year for the Tigers, but the following season, only one word could describe baseball's surprise.
Amazing! Amazing! Amazing!
Amazing! Amazing!
Amazing! Amazing! Asombrosos!
Amazing could only describe the New York Mets. In 1969, baseball instituted divisional play and the championship series, and the Mets, once baseball's laughingstock, won the pennant. Tom Seaver and a young pitching staff led the way. The expansion Mets had never finished higher than ninth, but New York was in for a treat. The '69 series put the Mets against the Baltimore Orioles, touted by many as the strongest team since the '61 Yankees. Winning the National League pennant had been a triumph indeed, but beating the Orioles might take a miracle. But miracles were at hand, especially the gloved hands of Met fielders. With the series tied at a game apiece, Baltimore's Elrod Hendricks bats with 2 men on. Mets center fielder Tommy Agee comes to the rescue, saving at least 2 runs, maybe more. In the 7th, Paul Blair bats with the bases loaded against Nolan Ryan. Another shot deep in the gap, this time right center field. It's Agee's second incredible catch of the day, and this one saved at least 3 runs. Tommy Agee had prevented 5 runs, and the Mets won 5-0. But Game 4 would feature more. 9th inning, ace Tom Seaver leads 1-0 as Brooks Robinson bats with 1 out and runners at first and third. Out of nowhere comes right fielder Ron Swoboda. The tying run scored on a most unusual sacrifice fly. A replay shows again how incredible this grab really was. Many consider it the best World Series catch ever. Clearly, the amazing Mets and Ron Swoboda could do no wrong. In the bottom of the 10th, the vaunted Oriole defense takes on characteristics of the Mets of old, as a bloop double puts the potential winning run on second. Pinch hitter J.C. Martin is ordered to bunt. Martin runs to first inside the baseline, and the throw hits him, a controversial play. The winning run scores, and the Mets now lead 3-1. All New York is caught up in the fairy tale. In Game 5, Jerry Koosman gave up 3 early runs, but the Mets come back to take a 5-3 lead. And in the 9th, Koosman needs only 1 last out. The amazing Mets are world champions. A miracle, perhaps, but also the product of timely hitting, tight defense, and stingy pitching that held the Orioles to a 146 team batting average. A great win for the New York Mets and manager Gil Hodges. In 1970, Baltimore manager Earl Weaver got another chance. His staff of Jim Palmer, Dave McNally, and the clever screwballer Mike Cuellar all won 20, and the Birds took the pennant by winning 108 games. The 1970 World Series was rated just about even. It was a classic matchup of heavyweights. Cincinnati's slugging Big Red Machine and the Baltimore Orioles, who did everything well. One look at MVPs Johnny Bench and Boog Powell told the fans what to expect. But to Frank Robinson and the Orioles, the series meant something extra. The Mets had made them feel like victims of a practical joke. So Robinson and company took out their frustrations with long power blasts. Also, for Robinson, 5 years earlier, he'd been traded to Baltimore from Cincinnati. But this series is remembered primarily for a third base glove and another Robinson named Brooks. From the umpire's first call of play ball, the Reds found themselves meeting up again and again with the man at third. Any fan who watched the human vacuum cleaner in the '70 World Series had to believe he was the best defensive third baseman ever. Cincinnati pitchers were also odd. Brooks had a .267 lifetime average, but in this series, he batted .429 with 2 homers. This one-man show spelled doomsday for the Big Red Machine. Game 5, and Mike Cuellar looks for the final out, which will crown the Birds champs. And Storybook Justice directs the ball to the right man. The Orioles' year-long flight to vindication is over. But Brooks Robinson's performance in the spotlight of intensified national exposure is just the first in a series of such in the 1970s. In 1971, the Orioles won their division by 12 games and went on to the World Series to face the Pittsburgh Pirates of manager Danny Murtaugh. The Pirates could run, hit, and score with the best of them, and were led by right fielder Roberto Clemente, who had hit .341. Clemente was a 4-time batting champ, and in 17 years had compiled a lifetime average of .317. The '71 series was only Clemente's second, but it became his national showcase. Against Baltimore, Clemente showed it all and gave his all, even on a tap back to the mound. At age 37, this tireless performer reached the high point of his career. Clemente collected 12 hits in the series, 5 for extra bases, while batting .414 for a Pirate team that only hit .235. He was not known for his long ball power, but delivered 2 home runs in the '71 series. The second homer came in the Pirates' 7th game 2-1 victory and enabled Pittsburgh to come back from a 2-0 deficit to win the World Series. The next season would be Clemente's last, and his final hit was a double that gave him the coveted total of 3,000 hits. A tragic plane crash would take Roberto Clemente's life only 3 months later. In 1972, the Oakland A's won the first of 3 consecutive world titles. The team that formerly won them for Connie Mack in Philadelphia now belonged to eccentric owner Charlie Finley. Manager Dick Williams and players like Bert Campaneris, Joe Rudy, ace Catfish Hunter, reliever Raleigh Fingers, Ken Holtzman, and Vida Blue combined to form one of baseball's finest but least harmonious teams. They became renowned for their turmoil off the field and their brilliant play on it. The irony irony of the A's is that they were masters of team baseball, winning the close games by making the big plays under pressure. If Charlie Finley had one real superstar, it was Reggie Jackson. Jackson could really crush it when it counted. In 1972, the A's toppled Cincinnati in 7 games. The Mets fell in 7 in 73, and in 1974, the Dodgers lasted only 5. Not since the awesome Yankees of the early 50s had baseball been so completely dominated by one team. But almost unbelievably, the players who made this team would soon be leaving for other ball clubs as Charlie Finley watched his dynasty crumble. 1974 was also a year of individual accomplishments. It was that season that Hank Aaron of the Atlanta Braves rose to the pinnacle of his 23-year career, a career that places him among the greatest who ever played. Aaron played in more games, had more at-bats, and drove in more runs than anyone ever. And he's second only to Ty Cobb in total hits and total runs. But when the name of Henry Aaron is mentioned, one achievement stands out. April 8, 1974, opening day at Atlanta Stadium. Home run number 715, breaking Babe Ruth's career record. Henry Aaron went on to play his last 2 seasons for the Milwaukee Brewers in the city where it all began, bringing his final home run total to 755. The base stealing of Lou Brock was showing no signs of slowing down in 74. If anything, the Cardinal great was speeding up. In Brock's rookie year, the Dodgers' Maury Wills broke Ty Cobb's single-season record of 96 stolen bases, a figure long regarded as untouchable. But Wills' new record of 104 had no such regard, at least by Lou Brock, who at 35 stole his 105th base and went on to finish the season with an imposing 118. Three years later, another record, stolen base number 893, placing Lou Brock ahead of Ty Cobb on the all-time list, proving once again that baseball's untouchable records are like all the others, there to be broken. Every bit a record breaker was Nolan Ryan, who in 1973 struck out 383 batters, breaking by 1 the former mark of Sandy Koufax. And in 75, Ryan pitched the 4th no-hitter of his career, tying Koufax. In 1975, while the Oakland A's were starting to come apart, the Cincinnati Reds were finally coming together. Every summer for 5 years, the Reds fans were convinced that their Big Red Machine was on its way to a World Series title. But as good as the Reds were, Johnny Bench and his teammates had come up empty in their October opportunities. Sparky Anderson knew that the team weakness was pitching. And in 1975, the Cincinnati manager juggled his staff brilliantly. The Reds won 108 games with a lineup that included 5 All-Stars. Pete Rose at third base, the 4th regular position of his big league career. Joe Morgan, recognized by many in the mid-70s as the game's best all-around player. Shortstop Dave Concepcion, Johnny Bench, a certain Hall of Famer, and RBI man Tony Perez. The Awesome Reds were en route to a big date in October. Waiting for Cincinnati, the Boston Red Sox, a powerful combination of veterans and youth led by pitcher Louis Tiant, the ageless man of a million motions. Left fielder Carl Yastrzemski, superbly steady at 36. And the first man ever to be Rookie of the Year and MVP the same season, 23-year-old center fielder Fred Lynn. The Reds led 3-2, and with the full moon brightening the prospects for Game 6, the stage was set for one of the most exciting baseball games ever played. An early Boston lead slowly disappeared. Then George Foster put the Reds ahead. A smash not even Fred Lynn could catch. Bottom of the 8th, the Reds lead 6-3. Pinch hitter Bernie Carbo faces Raleigh Eastwick with 2 on and 2 out. The Reds' ace reliever gets 2 strikes on Carbo, who 6 years earlier began his career with Cincinnati. But Carbo has 1 strike remaining. A game-tying 3-run homer by a part-time player named Bernie Carbo. The Red Sox are alive, and joy reigns in Fenway. It's a brand new ball game, and Cincinnati's spirits are dampened. Now it's the 11th inning with a man on and 1 out, Joe Morgan at bat. Right fielder Dwight Evans takes away a 2-run homer and turns it into a double play. Bottom of the 12th, and the score is still tied. This is the latest hour that any World Series game has ever been played, but no one has gone home. Leading off for the Red Sox, catcher Carlton Fisk. A fair ball and a home run. The fabulous 6th game of the 1975 World Series is history. And yet, for all of this, the Red Sox did not win the World Series. In the 7th game, all eyes were on Joe Morgan, who drove in the winning run with a 9th inning Dying Quail single. The Reds had won their first World Series in 35 years. And Pete Rose was named the series MVP. The 1975 World Series had been one of the closest ever. 5 games decided by 1 run. A great moment for the Cincinnati Reds and all of baseball. Baseball's big moments become legendary, and Yankee Stadium has been the site of many such moments. In 1977, the past and present met when Casey Stengel's old favorite, Billy Martin, managed the Yankees to their first World Series triumph in 15 years, and it was against the Dodgers. Joe DiMaggio was on hand to remind the Yankees of their heritage. But it was a Yankee newcomer who was most ready to write the next page in their record book. It's the 4th inning of the 6th game, and Reggie Jackson is at bat. A victory will give New York the series, and Jackson's home run provides the Yankees with a lead they'll not relinquish. In the bottom of the fifth, the Yankees threaten again. And Reggie comes through. Another homer. It's the bottom of the eighth, and attention is now focused not on winning a title, but on regaining a legend. On his third swing of the night, Jackson hits it into the distant reaches of the center field bleachers, territory once reserved for names like Mantle and Ruth. Jackson's third home run ties a record set by Babe Ruth, and his totals of 5 in a series and 4 straight are records for Reggie Jackson alone. In 1978, the Yankees had a pennant to defend, and they did it in remarkable fashion. The early season was agony. Personal conflict and injuries put New York 14 games behind Boston in mid-July. A managerial change was made. Bob Lemon was brought in to smooth the waves in a sea of Yankee egos, and Lem's calming presence got results. Ron Gehrig led the way with 25 victories. Catfish Hunter came back from arm trouble. And Rich Gossage supplied blistering heat from the bullpen, leading the league with 27 saves. In September, the Yankees were still smoking, but trailed Boston by 4 games as they headed to Fenway Park. Early in the year, the Red Sox appeared unbeatable, but injuries set in, and the powerful Yankees, sensing the weakness, went for the kill. In what became known as the Boston Massacre, the Yankees unleashed a furious offensive attack to sweep the 4-game series and join Boston in a first-place tie, leaving the Red Sox to ponder how their 14-game lead had vanished. But the Red Sox weren't dead yet. Boston and New York finished the season all even and met again at Fenway Park for an historic 1-game playoff. Carl Yastrzemski's second-inning homer gave Boston the lead, and the Red Sox were out in front again. But again, the Yankees battled back. In the 7th inning, Bucky Dent, who had hit only 4 home runs all season, shocked Boston with a 3-run blast that gave the Yankees the lead. And an inning later, Reggie Jackson supplied the blast that would provide the Yankees with their margin of victory. Bottom of the ninth, Yastrzemski at bat. Boston down by a run, 2 men on, 2 out. The tumultuous 78 Yankees had made the greatest comeback in baseball history and would go on from Boston to win another World Series. In 1979, baseball's biggest winners were 2 clubs that emphasized old-time values. The Baltimore Orioles came to the World Series full of enthusiasm generated by their own cheerleader. They faced the Pittsburgh Pirates, who proclaimed to the world that they were more than a team, they were family. In the first game, Mike Flanagan chilled the Pirate attack with a 5-4 complete game victory to bolster an already confident Baltimore outlook. But in Game 2, Manny Sanguillen, one of 3 Pirates on the club which beat Baltimore in '71, came off the bench in the 9th inning to deliver the winning blow. And for his heroics, Sanguillen was roundly applauded before Game 3 in Pittsburgh. But the Pirates' show of support did not dismay Earl Weaver in the least. In Games 3 and 4, Oriole batsmen pounded Pirate pitching, taking a 3-game-to-1 lead. Buck fans wanted to know just what was going on. The Pirates had to win 3 straight and put their hopes on Jim Rooker, 37 years old and twice disabled during the season. But Rooker came through, and Pittsburgh grounded the Orioles to send the series back to Baltimore. In Game 6, Jim Palmer pitched well, but Dave Parker and some bad bounces for Baltimore allowed the Pirates to build a 4-run lead. Pittsburgh relief ace Kent Tekulve pitched 3 shutout innings of 1-hit baseball, and the Pirates tied the series at 3 games apiece, bringing it all down to the final night. And that final night belonged to Pirate captain Willie Stargell. In the 6th inning of the 7th game, with Pittsburgh trailing by a run, Pops connected for a 2-run homer that put the Bucks on top to stay. The '79 World Series belonged to the Pirate family, and Willie Stargell, one of the game's most admired players, joined ranks with the great heroes of baseball's past. And so the game goes on. Baseball's past, present, and future forming a rich unity of tradition, accomplishment, and anticipation. In fact, there are a number of players who provide continuity with the past as the game entered the 1980s. At the age of 38, Pete Rose enjoyed his 10th 200-hit season, surpassing Ty Cobb. Boston's Carl Yastrzemski, who in 1979 attained 2 milestones, his 3,000th base hit and 400th home run, the first American leaguer ever to combine the two. And Rod Carew, who won 7 batting crowns in 1 decade. Great pitchers also bridged baseball's generations. At age 40, Gaylord Perry won his 2nd Cy Young Award, the first pitcher to receive such honors in both leagues. Nolan Ryan with the highest strikeout ratio in baseball history. And Tom Seaver, 200 or more strikeouts 10 times in 11 years. The game goes on into the future. New heroes replace the old as baseball moves in a timeless circle. And each generation of stars relives the accomplishments of earlier greats. In a game constantly compared to its past, a home run will always be a home run, and the cheering crowds of the future will always echo the spirit of baseball.